Today's podcast episode contains material that discusses suicide and might be difficult for some listeners. If you or anyone you know is suffering with suicidal thoughts, please contact the TX support line on 04888 469 88. If you feel that you're a danger to yourself or others, please contact 000 immediately.
We're lucky enough today to have the amazing presence of Donna Thistlethwaite.
Around that, somewhere between 7 and 10 days, I just went, all right, I've made a mess of things. I think my family's going to be better off without me.
And you weren't telling anyone about how you felt?
No, I felt really disconnected from everyone and everything. You know, one of the major reasons that I share my story is because I want to give people hope.
Trademark Radio, coming through on your wireless.
Clear the old throat. No better way to do it than a good old cough in COVID times.
Right into the microphone.
Whack.
Yeah.
Get that into you.
And the reason I'm clearing my throat is because we are in the studio again today. Trademark Radio for another cracker of an episode with an amazing guest.
Always.
We're lucky enough today to have the amazing presence of Donna Thistlethwaite. Now, Donna is currently writing a memoir, a teaching memoir, which we've just been discussing. We might dive into a little bit, but anyone writing a book is already a winner in my book. Not that I've got a book.
Shut up.
She's written from Sydney to Surfers twice, raising money for Father Chris Rowley's Youth Off the Streets, based out of Sydney. So that's incredible. She's also a lived experience. She's had a lived experience with suicide and is now a mental health first aid trainer, advocate, public speaker, all-round legend. Donna Thistlethwaite, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
What an intro.
We got there in the end. I nearly if you're already a winner in my book was a complete accident.
The book, yeah. That was a good pun. It was unintentional, but it worked.
Sorry.
Donna, great to have you in here. Again, I think this is a LinkedIn connection that came about.
I didn't even know how I was referred.
Whoever tagged your name in our newsfeed, if you're listening, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, 100%. So it's interesting because we have heard your story before. I think we were at an event and we were talking to someone and they spoke of you. And, we just have never connected until now, and it's great to have you in. Obviously, your story, which we will, obviously dive into, is very close to, the foundings of Trademark and why we are doing what we do. It
is worthwhile. I will just jump in here and say, that this podcast does reference suicide, and so if the level of that discussion brings up any issues for anyone at all, just be warned that we are going to talk about some probably heavy stuff. And if anyone wants to reach out to anyone, we've also got TX available anytime. Trained mental health professionals and psychologists available on 04888 469 88 or fire over to tx.org if you want to check them out there.
Absolutely. And so you're a HR professional.
Yep.
Which is something that we've had to invest in our staff because now there's about 14 or 15 of us running around here, plus the TX team upstairs. So HR was something that I'd never been involved in. I don't think Dan had been involved.
There's no HR on a building site. If you're doing something wrong, you get told to fuck off. And if anyone complains, you get told it again.
Yeah, you get told to fuck off again. So, our HR journey has been an interesting one. And the Leanne, who's sort of been helping us with our HR stuff.
Shout out Leanne Hardage.
Has obviously taught us a great deal. It's going to be so interesting to hear your story coming from that world, and that was your profession to ending up in this downward spiral that you had. So how long were you in HR for, and was that something that you sort of went to uni and were doing full time from the get-go?
Yeah, so I started uni, I guess, a bit later in life. I was probably about 27, and so, signed up for a Bachelor of Business majoring in HR. I'd done started a TAFE diploma the year before and just became really fascinated with this subject called behaviour. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a psychologist. This is so interesting. And then I saw this TAFE career counsellor, and he said to me, you strike me as somebody who might take on other people's problems. Have you ever considered HR? It's like psychology for the workplace. And it's so funny because later I became a career coach and I thought, oh my gosh, I would never say that to somebody because, you know, they train you not to take on other people's problems. But it actually turned out to be like the most beautiful journey, and I was really glad that I studied HR and moved into the profession, and it was a really good fit for me.
That is such a weird thing to say. You're good at taking on other people's problems, so go where people have problems and just absorb that, or what? Is it just because of the empathy?
I suppose it does. I suppose it
things?
does make sense.
Yeah, I think he was worried that someone like me might burn out and, you know, leave the profession, whereas HR wasn't going to be quite as heavy. And yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And then how long were you in HR for?
So about 15 years.
Yeah, okay. And like for everyone out there, like how would you define what HR is? Because I know there'd be plenty of people listening, like tradies, because when we were tradies, we had no idea. Like, what is HR?
So it is fairly broad because it takes in things like how you train, reward, and support your workforce, really. So it's the people side of things. So you've got your strategy, your organisational strategy, and then you have HR sort of marrying in to that strategy and helping to operationalise it with your people.
Because to a degree, you're sort of a middleman, aren't you, between like management and then staff, and then just sort of making sure that everything sort of fits together and people's issues are getting dealt with, and that your procedures and stuff. So you are sort of a sounding board in a way for people either side. Yeah,
look, depending on the type of organisation that you're in, that can very much be the case. It was what I loved about my role in HR was I worked with our blue collar workforce. So I worked with the tradies, the electricians, and I loved it because there were a lot of guys, and everyone sort of, you know, told it as it was, and that's my style, and I love to be able to support them, and we were very much a conduit into sort of head office and a support for the leaders in their part of the organisation, and yeah, it was great. It was very rewarding.
Yeah, awesome. And you were with that organisation for 15 years?
Almost 17 years.
Yeah, okay, wow.
I didn't go straight into HR. I was studying when I started there, and then after I graduated, I moved into a HR job.
Yeah, amazing.
Now, admittedly, I haven't watched the Australian Story episode. There, I said it.
Daniel.
Because I want to come in and learn first. Right? But the name Donna Thistlethwaite might have been heard before. It's you've got a fantastic name. Has anyone told you that?
No.
I love saying Thistlethwaite. No. Anyway.
Well, do you know, Dan, it's actually Thistlethwaite.
Is it Thistlethwaite?
It's Thistlethwaite. It's got like a TH in the middle, and it's a classic because I used to have this fantasy about getting a new surname, right? I used to go, I'm not even going to marry for love. I'm just going to marry for a decent surname because it's long and people can never spell it. And then I go THISTLETH, and they go, no, I got that. I'm like, I'm not starting again.
They're going, but evidently I fucked it up, so I'm no better than anyone else.
You did.
This is so embarrassing. Let's just start again. It is a fantastic name.
Thanks, Dan. Do you know, I'm engaged now, right? I got engaged a few years ago, and it was so funny because we were with a big group of friends on Hamilton Island, and they were talking about like my surname and it becoming my partner's surname, and he just said to them, she's not even going to change it. She's not.
Aren't you changing it?
No, well, I've lived with this name for 50 odd years. And
logistically, like, there's a bit to take care of there, isn't it? Like, you've got your Facebook page, you know, you've got the concept of hyphens. You know,
I'd be more worried about my banking details on my Facebook page.
Yeah, like all this sort of stuff. You know, you got to get your business cards remade.
Exactly. I've got a profile with my current name. I'm not changing it.
Yeah,
because then you're going to get people going, Donna who?
Yeah.
So, wait, hang on. Anyway, you were featured on Australian Story. And that's pretty cool. Like, there's been some Australian Story do some awesome journalism and, tell some really compelling stories. So, you know, that must have been a hell of an experience to share your story to the world.
Yeah, they were pretty much the only people I would have trusted with the story. and they were amazing. They did a fabulous job.
Yeah, it was really good. I watched it the other week when you emailed it through. It was it's an amazing story, and I mean, let's just dive like right into it, because I mean, you were working as a HR professional, and then there was a trigger that happened at work.
Yeah.
Run us through what happened.
Yeah, so I was leading a small team and on a HR project that was going to change the way that we delivered services to the business. It was going to change the number of people that we needed in the department. And I had, I guess, like an argument with someone at work as she was working for me, and I had never had that happen, and she actually refused to do something I'd asked her to do, and I was pretty gobsmacked. I was like, whoa, it's not meant to work like this. And it was in an open plan office, everyone can hear, and yeah, I felt pretty, humiliated, and I walked away from that just like incredulous. And then I was like, over the sort of next few days, just starting to have some real doubts about my ability to be a leader. And I had been guiding, coaching managers for years on how to lead. And I just thought, oh my God, what right have I got? Like, what do I know? I'm obviously really crap at this. And yeah, just these doubts started to seed, and they just got worse and worse. And I just started to think I was hopeless, and it just became the lens that I saw all the subsequent interactions that I had through. So I would have a discussion with somebody and walk away and think, oh my God, they know I don't have any idea what I'm doing. They know I'm hopeless. They think I'm failing. And so I just had this voice in my head just feeding me, these stories, which, I can see now they were stories. And but back then I wasn't rational. I don't think I'd sort of, over a relatively short period, I just really unraveled.
And this was in 2012, right?
This was in 2012.
2012, yeah. And I mean, was there anything in the lead up to that had changed, in your day-to-day or who you were as a person in the lead up to that? Or was it just something just completely out of the blue and that just triggered everything? Or was there something that led up to it?
Yeah. So for a very long time, I had like feelings of not being good enough. Like pretty much I had a little bit of childhood trauma, and I just grew up with this feeling that there was something wrong with me, that I was different to other people, not as smart, not as fast thinking, basically, not
and
as
so
good.
your definition of something wrong was that you weren't as good as everyone else.
Yeah.
Is that the definition of wrong?
Yeah, totally.
Also, it sounds like it was just a lot of self-doubt, just generally self-doubt.
Absolutely. I had a long history of that, self-esteem issues, and
which is not uncommon.
Not uncommon.
In fact, more common than I think people would care to admit, or that we actually know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so I spent a lot of my life, I guess, trying to prove that I was okay to me and to other people. So, I went off to uni, as I said, a bit later, and I, had a grade point average of over 6 when I graduated. Had got loads and loads of 7s and stuff, because I just wanted to work as hard as I could to prove I wasn't stupid.
Sorry, so just for those of us who don't know what grade point averages are, is 7 good? 7's best?
Yeah, so basically the rating scale goes from 1 to 7, and 7 is like a distinction or a high distinction, I guess. And your grade point average is the average of over the 24 units that you do while you're at uni.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you were
a high achiever.
Yeah, high achiever, yeah.
A high achiever, yeah, absolutely. But, I didn't...
That still wasn't enough for you to think I'm good enough.
No.
Which is very interesting. That is interesting. So was it, any external pressures or anything that were in your life, or was it just you?
Yeah, so I think at the time there were definitely some pressures, in that I had a 2-year-old.
Yep.
And I was working part-time, and I was in a fairly busy role because it was sort of leading this project. It was sort of involved in a larger project, and then leading a sort of smaller project and leading a team. And I was working 3 days a week. And so, yeah, there was a bit going on. I didn't find parenting easy. I don't think I've ever found parenting easy, to be honest. You know, dearly love my son, but yeah, it hasn't been easy at all. And so
I doubt there'd be many parents out there that do admit that it is easy. I know people have said it is, but I think they're full of shit. 'Cause I don't think anyone bringing any child up would be easy. There's always challenges.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was going on. When things started to really go pear-shaped at work, I wasn't sleeping very well at all. I was just couldn't switch my brain off at night, and I had stopped exercising as well. So exercise has always been a really important part of my life, and usually it's cycling. Cycling's my happy place, but it's at the time I used to go to the gym because I found cycling hard to fit in back then. So been back on my bike sort of between 4 and 5 years now.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. And it was a 10-day sort of event.
Yeah, like a crisis. Yeah. Well, so at around that, somewhere between 7 and 10 days, I just went, all right, I've made a mess of things. I think my family's going to be better off without me. And I think if I were to die, they would have access to my insurance, which, you know, I don't believe that they would have anyway, but that's what I was thinking at the time.
Because, I mean, that is it'd be hard. You know, it's even hard for me to fathom that someone could go from just being at work, having a blow up with an employee, to wanting to end their life in 10 days.
Yeah,
you know, that's an incredibly short amount of time.
Yeah,
you know, because a lot of us would, you know, or I definitely think that, you know, often it's a slow progression of things that happen, and it's one thing after another. But I mean, 10 days is an extremely quick amount of time.
Yeah,
and could you describe to us what that progression looked like? Like from that day to day 10, what did that progression look like? Just for people out there so they can understand, and me too, and Dan.
Yeah, okay. So my partner was away. He had gone on a road trip in our combi.
Okay.
And with his mate. And so
cool. I want to talk more about that after.
Yeah. So he was out of the picture, and the boss that I had at the time, she was a fairly new boss to me because it hadn't been that long since I'd come back from maternity leave, and so she was away as well.
Yep.
And then I just started to, as I said, have these doubts, you know, in and out of meetings as you do in the corporate world, and just everything had this sort of negative sort of flavour to it for me. Stopped sleeping, stopped exercising. My partner's away, so I've had to pick up extra stuff at home without that support. Wasn't going home with anyone seeing how I was. Got quite withdrawn. Definitely people would have seen that something was going on.
That was my question. Did anyone pull you up at work, or?
So a couple of girlfriends, colleagues at work said to me, "Are you okay?
Yeah.
What's going on?" And while I was at work, I actually wasn't suicidal, and I definitely was withdrawn and not myself. So by nature, I have quite a happy disposition, quite friendly.
And you weren't telling anyone about how you felt?
No. So what was going through my head then was just like, oh my God, I can't do this. I don't want to be here. I even thought, look, if I just leave, then maybe, you know, I can get a redundancy and I won't have to stay here anymore, which is sort of, that was quite challenging for me because it was like I was running away from the situation, which wasn't my nature. And then also it felt dishonest as well. And so all of that was going on, and then I got to a point where I just thought I'm just don't want to be here. I'm just going to leave work. So I had an acting boss or a temporary boss while mine was away. I went and had a chat to him, and he was lovely. He was understanding, and he sort of talked about that concept of, you know, how do we eat an elephant, the one bite at a time. But I had just decided I wanted to get away. I didn't want to be there. So, yeah, I left the workplace, went and saw my GP, told her what was going on, my symptoms around not sleeping, etc. She suggested that I have a break from work and suggested some sleeping medication as well. And that was earlier in the week of the attempt. And I didn't tell my partner what was happening. So he was ringing, from his trip, and I didn't want to spoil it because at that stage I'd probably been with him 6 years and he'd never gone on a boys' trip. And so I was like, I don't want to wreck it, And he sensed something was going on, like he was due home on the Saturday. He came home on the Friday. On the Friday, I actually had the day off work. Well, I was actually off work at that stage anyway. And I went and met my sister and my cousin. And my cousin has children a similar age to our son. And we went to a play centre, and I said to them that I was thinking that I might get a sack from work, that I just, was a mess, like I'd messed things up, and that was a possibility. And they were like, oh, surely not. You've been there at that stage 16 years, and I'd always had good performance and was, I guess, well regarded at work. But yeah, this was what was just playing on my mind. Oh my gosh, that I'm going to get a sack. Then, then I can't do the job. So that's what's going to happen. And yeah, again, my cousin and my sister knew something was going on, but didn't know just how much I was struggling. And then that night my partner came home, and similar again. But yeah, when I talked to him about what was happening, it was like the reality of it all hit me much more significantly, where I just went, oh my God, this is just all so bad, and I can't fix it. And I rang my acting boss and said, can I come back to work? And he said that I wasn't able to, that I, had to go back to the doctor, and that it had been communicated to the CEO. And so then it just, it felt worse.
That was like the last sort of straw.
Yeah, that was just
getting confirmation you weren't going back.
Yeah, just like that I'd actually just effed everything up,
Wow. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Geez, what a compounding week.
Yeah.
Fuck. I could just, that's just, you must have just been, your soul was just crushed through that week, and you just burnt your mind just put
brain.
you in a position where you were just like, oh,
yeah.
Wow. That is, that's a strong, heavy story, because I can sort of, can feel it through your voice, how hard it obviously was. Yeah. And then and then that was it. And then there was the suicidal thoughts was just.
Yeah. So that from that point, then I started to think that could be the answer. And that Friday night, I didn't really sleep. I just thought about it all night and thought about the memes and stuff like that. And yeah, when I woke up that morning, I had got out of bed. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then, so that was a Friday night, and the Saturday night, more of the same. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it today. That was the Sunday.
And when you're not sleeping in a situation like that, when you are awake at night, when you just so desperately need that sleep, and the thoughts just don't turn off, it just becomes irrational. And also, and you become, sleep deprivation is crippling. It is absolutely crippling.
Torture,
Yeah, I just can't imagine, what you must have felt at that stage, to have gone from 0 to 100 like that, and then to have come to the final solution. That must have just been so absolutely, devastating. But at the same time, I mean, people talk about when you come up with that plan, that it's a relief. You're like,
probably liberated that you're like, this is it.
Was that? Did you experience that?
Yeah, I would say yes to that. I've done Are You Okay training, I'm a community ambassador, and I've done Lifeline training, before I became a crisis supporter there, and that's often something we talk about as a warning sign around suicide, that people actually become sort of like calmer and seem okay because they've got that clarity. And I would say that's the case.
And why do you think,
me.
looking back now, you didn't reach out to someone? Why didn't you tell anyone?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was a failure, and to let people know it was just like broadcasting that. It was like, I don't want people
Compounding.
to know. Yeah.
Like you already feel like shit. Your world's been rocked
Yeah.
because everything that you thought you were, you suddenly realised you weren't. And then being able to own that out loud compounds that entire feeling.
I was
It's like
just-
a cycle, self-perpetuating scenario.
Wow.
I did reach out to one person, which is so bizarre. I had worked with a psychiatrist years ago, Dr. Blair West, and I sent him an email and I said, hey, George, I've got these crazy thoughts in my mind of ending my life. And it bounced back. He changed email addresses. Yeah.
You're kidding me.
No.
Wow.
But it had been about 5 or 6 years since I'd worked with him, maybe 5 years.
What did that do when that bounced back? What did that do for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I just remember going, whoa, like,
Is that a
okay.
sign?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like
Yeah.
throwing it straight back in your face.
Yeah, I was like, all right. Yeah.
Well,
That was my call for help. But you know what? I guess what that shows is that there was some desire to get help. But yeah, interesting that it was only the one person. I guess because of his skills and, you know, the area that he works in, it was a logical person to reach out to. But yeah. It's a shame I didn't think to reach out to Lifeline or something.
But it takes a lot of gusto for anyone to reach out in a situation like that, and you want that to be a successful experience.
Yeah.
You know, like it needs to be. And when it just doesn't turn out like that, you just must feel defeated.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a wild
And so
thing to happen.
after you reached out there, what
Yeah.
like
It was probably solidifying your loop pattern to be like, oh, fuck, that's it.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, and the lead up to your attempt, you know, you're probably, like we were talking about before, you're probably feeling liberated, you're probably feeling empowered, you're like, this is a solution.
Made a decision.
Yeah. But what was that? Because I know on Australian Story you talked about how you walked over back across the bridge a few times. And what were you saying to yourself then? Like, what was...
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine, because I am petrified of death, right? Scares the fucking shit out of me. Because it's like, you know, I'm not really sure what's going on, even though, you know, we're all heading there and you've got to accept it.
Totes.
But to be putting yourself in a position where, fuck, I'm going to get into this right now is a feeling that I just can't comprehend. You know, I can't comprehend that. So what was going through your mind during that last few minutes?
Yeah. So when I drove to the bridge, my objective was to just plan. I went there to work out where I would park later that night when I came back, and basically what I would do when I got there. And once I was there, I was walking across the bridge a couple of times, just thinking about it all. And then at one stage I thought someone was following me as well, and maybe they were. I'm not sure. There was like a jogger or something, and I was like, oh God, is that guy? Yeah, is he looking at me? Is he following me? It might have been paranoia, right? I definitely wasn't rational at the time.
Yeah.
And I got to one end of the bridge, and because I'd kept thinking about it and thinking about my family, I felt really disconnected from everyone and everything, including, you know, the people on the bridge. And then I just thought, well, you're here, just do it now, basically.
And you don't remember anything, right, from the actual attempt because you just woke up in hospital, right?
Yeah, so I remember climbing over the fence. I remember.
Was there anyone around you?
Yeah, there were, but I can't really.
Just blocked
I
it
don't
all
know
out.
how close they were because I rang and left a message on my partner's voicemail, and then I sort of dropped my bag and took off my shoes, and then I just really quickly climbed over, and it wasn't very easy. It was a little. I'm short. It was sort of a bit of an effort, and then my breath was just taken away. It was like like this, and then I just calmly said to myself, "It's okay." Just going to the other side, and then I just relaxed.
And
Sorry.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, I remember actually not so much hitting the water. I remember coming up to the surface and just my body stinging a lot of pain.
Because it was in the middle of winter, wasn't it?
Yeah, August.
Yeah.
It
because
was freezing.
the interesting part of the Australian story was the CityCat driver and assistant that saw you in the water.
Yeah.
And obviously helped get you out and to the bank. I mean, their story as well is quite an interesting one. And you only met again on the Australian story thing, right?
Yes.
Was that when you reconnected?
Totally. So I had no recollection of them. Australian Story tracked them down, and we went out on a boat for the filming, and obviously I got to meet them, and they were just amazing guys, really, really lovely.
Yeah, but I mean, and it was so interesting hearing their perspective of it and how, obviously that's such a confronting thing to go over and make happen, because they didn't know. They were like, they think this woman or this person has fallen off the bridge. But then how their boss was just like, you've got to fucking make up some time because you've missed 3 stops by saving this person. And then there was just never anything spoken about it. Yeah. It's just fucking mind-blowing.
I know. It's crazy.
That is just so mind-blowing that's what happened to those 2 men.
Yeah.
And, geez, I just hope that sort of stuff isn't happening anymore. But it is just, such a confronting story for everyone involved. And then you obviously came to in hospital.
Yeah.
And then that was obviously, run us through that. I mean, waking up, what were your injuries? Did you?
I fractured 5 vertebrae and a rib and lacerated my liver.
Okay. So right. So lucky you didn't break, because they say obviously from that height you're gonna, it's like hitting concrete and you break all your bones in your feet and your legs. So that's you've obviously come away there extremely lucky to only have done that sort of damage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then you've just woken up and run us through that.
So when I woke up, I didn't know where I was, and I just felt really hot, and there was like this hypothermia blanket on top of me, so it was like weighted and hot, and I was just like, where the hell am I? And then I saw my partner and his mother actually, and then I realized where I was and what had happened, and I was pretty spun out that I was alive, to be honest. I was like, oh, this isn't how I thought things were going to go. And
was it relief that you were alive?
It certainly is now. I didn't. I was shocked. It was shocked. It was the biggest emotion for me at that time, and I didn't feel, as I've sometimes heard people feel, like annoyed that it hadn't worked. I was just surprised. I was just like, whoa, this isn't what I expected. And over the sort of time that I was in hospital, I was only in like the Royal for about 8 days. I just was desperate to get out of there. There was like a family birthday coming up, and I was like, I don't want to be here. And I came to the conclusion that I must have survived for a reason, that there must be something I'm meant to do.
There's no doubt.
How long did that take? How long did that realisation take to come around?
A few days, I would say.
Because obviously you're dealing with some pretty severe physical injuries, but you're also at the same time dealing with some severe psychological traumas, and so you're not just navigating the sheer fact of being in hospital for those injuries, but coming to terms with the entire thing,
all the emotions. Like you would have,
and not to mention that this is just you. Then you've got your support networks and your family who are.
Oh my God! Everyone was traumatized
equally, and the workplace and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My workplace were amazing, I have to say.
Were they? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they did an amazing job. You know, I had people like a senior manager visit me in hospital, and after I got out of hospital and went to that, it was like a 2-year-old's birthday party. I then, a couple of days later, checked myself into the mental health unit as well, and I was visited there. Obviously, I agreed to that, but I felt like I could have stayed, and that was pretty amazing. And for any employers out there, I think a lot can be learned from that experience, because I felt respected through the process. I felt like my privacy had been maintained, that was really, really helpful. That made me feel as though I could have stayed if I'd wanted to.
Yeah.
And did you, obviously in the time following that, there's a huge amount of time where there's a whole lot of self-reflection, obviously therapy, possibly medication, not sure.
Yeah.
But you obviously going through a whole range of motions to come to terms and rehabilitate yourself, with everything that's gone on.
Yeah, mentally and physically.
Yeah. The injuries were, they're pretty substantial. And I was like, I just don't want to be on medication. So I did take some antidepressants. I had some interesting conversations with the doctors, because they kept saying that I was depressed, and I was like, I don't really feel like it was depression. Like, I know that it's not normal to do what I did. Like, to me, looking back and with the extra knowledge I have now, I think it was sort of like a form of anxiety, and I feel like that I've probably lived with anxiety all my life, all that, like not ever feeling enough, and everything was a form of anxiety, like just a mild form that was just bubbling away there.
Just lingering.
Yeah. And so I was doing lots of research. Can you not, do you have to be depressed to do what I did? And so I was just trying to make sense of it all. And then also just like make sure it didn't happen again. Like, I saw what my family went through, and I was just like, it's not the answer. And in fact, when I went to the mental health unit, the nurse that checked me and told me that my son would be at 50% greater risk of suicide in his lifetime if I had completed suicide. So I've tried to verify that stat, but what I can absolutely know is true, that there is greater risk to children, and that, they can potentially feel like they caused it in some way. And so from that moment, I just went, no matter how bad life gets, I'm never going to curse my son.
Yeah.
With that.
Up until that point, in your entire life, had suicide ever been any consideration in any circumstance at all?
So, yes and no. Occasionally, I would think, walking over the bridge, I used to walk around it a lot for exercise, and I used to live at Norman Park and walk into the city, and just occasionally I would have this feeling going, you could jump, but it wasn't a reflection of things even being bad in my life or anything. It would just be this random thought that popped into my head.
I know, I think I know what you're talking about, because like I've experienced this sort of feeling, when you're on a high balcony, you're in a high, and you just and I know that the handrail is there's more of me above it than below it, and it's like
You're a tall drink of water, mate.
Yeah, and I don't think about needing like to end my life because for any kind of solution to anything. More just the fact that you could physically climb over that handrail
and jump.
And it's not and I think it's
people talk about the fear of heights being it's not the fear of the height, it's the fear that they'll jump off, which I've heard before. I also don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I have heard. That's why people are scared of heights, because they're afraid they're going to jump. Yeah,
and it's just So I
I've definitely felt that too in high-rise buildings. Like at Slim's apartment, I freak out going to bed because I haven't slept walked since grade 8. First night of boarding school, grade 8. It's the last time I've ever slept walked. But petrified every time I stay there, thinking, fuck, if I sleepwalk, there's no, I'm never going to survive if I go off that balcony. Because Alana's my wife's cousin. Her hubby was staying in Sydney one night. He fell off a 5-story balcony. He sleepwalked off it
gosh.
because he's a sheep farmer from down near Cowra, and they reckon he just leapt the rail in his sleep. And he landed in a banana lounge next to the pool and survived. Fucking miracle.
Wow.
But yeah, so those sorts of things, it's like, holy shit, that just petrifies me.
So I suppose, the question was sort of not around, whether you were in and around those areas and you could like physically climb over a handrail.
Yeah.
But like, you had those thoughts about like needing to do that
No.
because of struggles.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I hadn't.
yeah.
This was,
This
So
was
I think
the only
I think that is probably pretty common, to be honest, from
Yeah.
conversations I've had with people where you
Yeah.
consider like, oh God, like but not as a way of like actually ending your life for to put yourself at ease.
No. So let's talk about the obviously the journey afterwards and what that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have taken you months just to heal physically,
Yeah.
right? You're probably lucky you're not in a wheelchair. Is that right? Like, where did you break your vertebrae?
Oh gosh. So I think some were thoracic spine and then like the lumbar spine.
So did you need to learn to walk again or anything like that? No.
I couldn't just walk around as freely and comfortably. I'd sort of shuffle and I was in a bit of pain. And as I said, I was pretty keen to get off the pain med. So after a few days, because I really feel like endone and makes me feel sick. And so I was just on Panadol and Nurofen.
Yep.
And just I think I had 6 weeks off work, 6 weeks before I went back to work. And
that's a quick turnaround. 6 weeks, isn't it? Like that's a pretty. So what was the? So did you start seeing psychologists, psychiatrists, or?
Yeah. So I had the psychiatrist I'd seen years before, George, I mentioned before, and so I worked with him to try and come up with a plan of what I would do next because I wasn't sure I wanted to stay in that environment, but I had this thought that something very significant had just happened in my life, and maybe it was because I wasn't in the right place.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? And so I worked with him to work that out, and I was very fortunate that I was able to access a redundancy, which made my life a bit easier. I studied the following year.
Okay.
And so that was, that made a very big difference. So I worked with him. And then when I was at the mental health unit, I found that their primary focus was really keeping you alive, making sure that you didn't make further attempts and that you were safe. And I had gone there thinking that they might help me understand,
what happened.
Yeah.
I can I can see when you talk, like I can look into your eyes, I can see you like pausing and thinking back, and I'd imagine putting yourself exactly in the position that you were in as you remember it. And for starters, like it's incredibly brave of you, and obviously I'm assuming you've been told this before, but it's incredibly brave to see you sitting here, not only taking ownership of this kind of stuff, but being able to talk through this stuff must have been traumatic for a long time, but also taken you a long time to actually come to terms with. Do you find that it took? Well, how long did it take for you to start to come to terms with? Because that's and are you in a place now where you are fully, or is it always a lifelong thing to be working through this stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. It probably is like your life work, I think, but not so much that incident. Like I've become really focused on just how do I stay well? How do I continue to grow? I feel like there's always been a part of me that was interested in growth. I don't know if like that word seeker that people use, I feel like that has been me, and maybe it was because I had a few challenges as a young person, and it's sort of like, well, I want to actually grow. I want to, find or live the best life I could. And so, I feel like I was often seeking that out. And then I am really well now. I love my life. I have I love myself, which I don't think I could have always said. And I accept myself, and I know I'm not perfect, and that's okay. None of us is actually perfect.
Preaching.
But yeah, it took a few years. So we didn't tell people, and I think that actually made it harder in hindsight.
You didn't tell people outside of the family?
Yeah, but just a few friends. But like for quite a few years, there was like maybe a couple of handfuls of people who knew.
Yeah, and so why was that?
Was it shame? Did you feel shame?
It was a few things. I think shame came into it, definitely, and stigma. It's people don't talk about this sort of stuff.
This is almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's getting close to 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I mean, 10 years ago, I'm trying to think. Yeah, 2012, what the conversation was like back then. But I mean, yeah, it is interesting to think that that's the safe way to do it, because obviously you're trying to protect yourself and your family, because you're like, I don't want everyone to know. But then there's probably also the murmurings to be like, well, fuck, what were you telling people? Because obviously you had sustained injuries. What were you saying? You had a bike accident or something?
So I'd had a bit of a history of back pain. I don't anymore. And so, I think we just told people that I'd hurt my back. And, just think about it. I was, offline for 6 weeks. But how often do you have, a few months before you see your mates
all
again?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It's not that period of time.
It wasn't hard to hide.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. It
was a bit harder with work, but I just told people I'd hurt my back, which was true. And part of the other reason we kept it a secret was my son was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be the person who told him what happened. I didn't want him to hear it from any other person. And I knew that he wasn't going to be ready for ages. And so I just... that was why. Then. Yeah.
So what was that conversation like with your son? How obviously that would have been an extremely hard thing to do, and to explain to him, for him to know that it wasn't anything about him. Yeah. It was you actually, in your mindset, you thought you were helping him out by going. Yeah. Which is, a hard thing. And how old was he?
So he was 7 when we had the conversation.
Yeah.
And we had it because it was Australian Story was being filmed, and they wanted him in the show because obviously he's a key person in my life. And so out of respect for him, we wanted to tell him what was going on. And then also obviously if it was going on national TV, there's a chance that he would hear people talking about it. So, it was an interesting conversation because, he was still very, very young.
Yeah, 7 is young.
Yeah.
What grade are you in 7?
I think he was probably grade 3.
Yeah, okay, that's a very, okay.
Yeah.
And how has he dealt with that through the progression, growing up and your continual conversations? And obviously what you're doing now, because you're very much surrounded by the mental health conversation with what you do.
Yeah. So... It wasn't an easy conversation, and I just told him that I had these really unhelpful thoughts in my head, and they caused me to make that decision. And I answered questions he had, and there weren't many, but I think too he was at that very literal sort of stage of his development, because I remember something happening couple of weeks later, and maybe we were at the shops or something, and I said blah blah blah, and he went, "Oh, so is that why you jumped off the bridge, Mum?" And then I was a bit like, "Oh wow."
It's good that he can just he's just nonchalant about it. Like that takes a lot, so that's a good sign.
Yeah. So that was pretty funny. I was like, "Oh wow, do you want to talk about that some more?" And I think we will be having that conversation probably for the rest of his life, because as we evolve and as each of us grows too, your understanding of things changes, doesn't it? So your perspective. So he's pretty cool with it all now. There was a time, I don't know, a year or so ago, when something was happening, and he said to me, "Oh, Mum, I'm so glad that you survived, because who would help those people that you help? And I was like, oh, wow, man.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Do you believe, like, are you a believer in, like, I'm not a huge fan of the words like fate and destiny, but like, do you believe
The two you just used?
But to paint the picture, but do you believe in things happening for a reason, or have you believed that in your life, or do you believe that now?
Yeah. So I think I have always believed that, and definitely believe that now. I think I'm here for a reason, and I don't know. Is it justification, or a sense of purpose? Is it my way of justifying that? But even if that's the case, I'm okay with that, because it has helped me to process and make sense of what's happened, and be able to use that experience positively for myself and others.
Yeah, of course. It's it's quite a journey. I mean, I'm just taking it all in because far out. It's a powerful story, and it's a hard one. And like Dan was saying, you can see it in your eyes, telling it how hard it obviously is to tell this back. Even when it happened nearly 10 years ago, it's such a traumatic thing to happen, and all the little things that thinking about. Yeah, the waking up. What do you tell people at work? What do you tell your mates? What do you tell your son? What do your parents think? There's so much to deal with through the survival of it.
But at the same time, on the with the relationship side of things, it sounds like actually it wasn't broadcast to too many people.
No,
That's right.
But you've still got that. You'd still be thinking that.
Yeah.
Thinking, fuck, what are all these people going to think? And how am I going to explain this to these people?
Yeah.
And then what was the reaction from your friends and stuff that you hadn't told until you'd told your son? What was the reaction like then? Because obviously it was a few years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were filming Australian Story, they actually wanted to come with us on a camping trip to the actual campground I went to the weekend just gone.
Yeah.
And
Where's that?
It's called Bluff Creek at Kenilworth.
Oh God, we've just world's best secret is out in the open now.
Do you know it?
Everyone's going to be out there now. No, but I know Kenilworth. Like,
oh my gosh.
Everyone stops at the bloody dairy
yeah.
at the dairy joint there. My God, they
cheese
shifted
factory.
with cheese and
So
ice cream. Yeah.
Two great things.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I was sort of like, I was like, oh, well, our friends don't know. Like a bunch of friends don't know. And we were going for a friend's 40th, and I said, I rang one of the girlfriends who did know and said, hey, did you tell your partner? Because it was her partner's 40th. And she's like, oh, why? What's happened? And I was like, no, nothing like that.
I'm bringing a film crew out of the trip. I'm bringing it.
Yes. I've got to ask Amy if I can bring these people to her 40th and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to tell everybody. And at the time I was doing these videos in my career coaching business. And she said to me, why don't you do a video? And so that's what I did. I did a video to our friendship group, and it's pretty large, and sent it to them and said, hey, look, just a heads up, this has happened. And
That's an interesting way of doing it, isn't it?
It's a great way of doing it.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a great thing to do. I'm just saying it's an interesting way to do it. It's like,
Well, you just get them all at once with the same message.
Exactly.
And
no confusion.
Then like my instant thing is like, how did you send it? Like, what platform did you send it on?
On Messenger.
On Messenger. So, okay.
Yeah.
So it's you
Group
fired
Messenger.
Cool. So you fired it off, and then I'm guessing you like there's like, fuck righto, I've done this. Wow. And then you start to see people's profile icons drop down to that message that's been opened. And then they're obviously watching it, and you would be waiting for someone to say something.
Yeah.
How was that?
I didn't sort of wait with a bated breath, but yeah, I certainly went and looked at the messages, and they were just incredible. Like, yeah, people were just so beautiful, and just, it was incredible. Like, it was very heartfelt, and I felt so supported.
And heard, I suppose, as well. Hearing,
Did your friendship group feel like they in some form like missed out on an opportunity to be there for you?
that just came up on the weekend, actually. So we don't talk about it very much. You know, it's something that's happened. We moved on from it. But it was so weird being at that campground again on the weekend. It brought some of that up for people. And I guess maybe because I'm writing the book now as well. And one of our friends, Amy, said at the end, you know, I still grapple a bit with that, you know, feeling of I should have been there. I would have liked to have been there, whatever. And that was another reason we didn't tell everybody, because I didn't want people to feel that.
To feel like they'd missed something.
That feel, exactly that. And I know one of my friends, I was at her place the weekend before, and I deliberately didn't tell her for that reason, because I was just like, I don't want her to feel that, because, you know, I didn't let on very much at all.
Yeah.
So obviously you've gone through everything that we've just talked about is huge.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. It's really powerful, incredible of you. And what did the time after that look like when you started to regain a sense of normality about your life, new perspective, thinking about working again, all of these kinds of things? How did that roll out? Because you know, we're going to sort of we'll sort of roll into talking about what you're doing now and all that sort of stuff. But how did that sort of look? What did that look like?
Yeah, so about 6 months after, the attempt, I trained as a Lifeline crisis supporter. I did that, you know, as a volunteer for 4.5 years, and that was again part of my strategy to use what happened for good, and then also just risk mitigation for the future. Like, how do I make sure I don't go there again?
That must be confronting for having gone through that and then working for Lifeline on the crisis support line.
Yeah.
Dealing with people who were in your exact situation.
Yeah. I mean, they train you really well. There's a model, and it's, I really, found it very valuable to do that work.
Was it almost like a bit cathartic? To put yourself in that environment?
It was very much that, how do I help others with what I've been through? And you don't tell your story on the phones at Lifeline.
Oh, shit, no.
No, they've got a model you work through, and so...
Oh, really? You can't say that I can empathise?
No.
Fuck,
well, you can
really?
say you can empathise, but you can't share your story because it's about the caller and, focusing on them. And because they could ring up and then, ring up tomorrow night and they're not going to get you. And so, not everyone who works on that line's got had a personal experience. So... so I think that was really helpful. And then sort of it would actually be a few years later that I had this epiphany where I just went, you know what, I know I'm never ever going to do that again, but I don't feel like I've dealt with what caused it. I still feel like there's something wrong with me. I still have unhelpful thoughts, not suicidal thoughts, but thoughts that I'm boring, that there's something wrong with me. And one day I was having coffee with some ladies that I'd catch up with regularly, and I just blurted out what was going on, and they're like, what are you talking about? That's not what we see. We see this, really bright energy, someone can light up a room when she walks into it. And I was like, what is going on? There is a disconnect between what I think is happening and what other people are experiencing. And that was a real turning point where I just went, okay, I don't want to live like this. And I pretty much just asked the universe, what do I need? I was like, what do I need for fulfilling life? And then this whole, over the next year, really intensely, and then the following year, just lots of growth, lots of people coming into my life, just insights. Yeah.
Because you're putting yourself out there, I suppose, and that's what was, the universe sort of pulling people into you.
Yeah.
Are you like a spiritual or religious person or anything like that? Like, what's your...
I would say spiritual. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then you just feel with positive energy and surrounding yourself with the right people. Yeah, interesting. Because was that something that you've got a lot more feeling for that now post incident?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I've just the journey. It's amazing how these things need to happen for people to be put on these sorts of trajectories and stuff like that, because there's absolutely no way we'd be doing what we're doing if Dan's mate hadn't, taken his life. We'd be out there slogging a hammer somewhere in fucking Barden, probably putting a deck in somewhere, talking about all the different wild and wonderful things we could be doing you know, in our lives.
It's the reality is that you need tragedy and you need, for want of a better word, fucked up situations to happen to
Wake you up.
create solutions.
Yeah.
Or
to force change.
Yeah.
Like
It's-
it doesn't have, you don't get one without the other. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's an interesting concept. You talked about sort of earlier on about how when the thing happened at work, the one episode that happened at work
That was sort of like the trigger, the chain
trigger.
reaction. It set off a
Yeah.
chain reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. That could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
No one is immune to that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also that you had some stuff from your childhood, and we've one of our great mates, Nick Sutherland, who sort of drove into us this idea that for a lot of people, adulthood is unfucking their childhood.
I like it.
You know?
I agree.
And it is, because everyone, it's like I have conversations with everyone, and it goes back to your childhood, and no childhood is perfect. Everyone has their shit that they go through, but you got to unpack that, and it can be so difficult to unpack, because when you experience those things at such a young age where you haven't emotionally evolved, grown, established yourself yet, it's hard to even make sense of that.
But you haven't been set up,
But you think like potentially that there was underlying things there from a long time ago that, for a long time had you questioning your sense of self-worth or like your identity in this kind of stuff. And for a long time you were on a path, to sort of push those thoughts away and be who you didn't feel like you were. And then you've had one incident in a workplace that has completely just dismantled your bedrock, your whole entire
that foundation wasn't strong enough. That's for sure.
How was that the point that sort of made that evident, that there was other stuff to work on? There were deeper things to work on.
Yeah, and I had tried to do some work. I really had. That psychiatrist I mentioned, George, I went and saw him because of relationship issues and the fact that I was constantly attracted to men who weren't right for me or that weren't able to give me what I was looking for. By sort of like the time I saw him, I was really keen to have a baby. I was in my sort of mid-late 30s. And so I've just lost my train of thought.
Setting up the bedrock and
yes,
knowing that
so I had tried to do some work, and what I say to people nowadays is just keep going until you find what you need to get you on track, because I don't think there is one type of therapy or intervention or activity that works for every person. It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's important that you actually listen to yourself. Like your body
I reckon
lie,
your body gives you messages. I really reckon
there's
that,
the negative self-talk and the thoughts that come up in your head, although, as you say, unhelpful, very unhelpful. But I can guarantee everyone has a wide range of unhelpful thoughts.
Oh, totally.
They just let happen like they're on cruise control, and they don't actually stop and think about who's creating those thoughts and where they're coming from, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That conscious decision to focus in on exactly why and what. And I think it's so important.
Yeah.
Your body just oozes stuff out,
It comes out of you in one way or another.
It does come out, and
all those repressed thoughts and feelings.
But it's then
emotions.
Then it's the grapple of the head, heart, and gut. Three very, very powerful decision-making components of yourself.
Yeah.
Which can often contradict each other as well.
Yeah, one pulls against the other, and you're like, well, which one do I believe?
But it's important to, that's what professional support is about. Literally helping you unpack those things there. And it's very important to get in and unpack it and have a talk about it, because as soon as that starts to get out, you can start to take ownership and deal with those root causes.
Absolutely.
I want to. Sorry, you go.
You're
go.
right. No. You're about to go where I was going. Go.
Oh,
So, but you've got the card in your hand, so you've got the card to my happiness right there.
Yeah. So, Donna, you gave us a couple of cards before we started. I'd love to know, what these words on here mean to you and why you carry these around and hand them out.
Yeah, right. So I give these out to audience members as a take home, a keepsake. It's easy to fit in your wallet or your purse. These are pretty much the first 6 strategies that I found when I decided that I was going to change my life, that I was going to create this more fulfilling life. And yeah, so the first one is gratitude practice. Oh my gosh, gratitude, incredible. Can be done in lots of different ways, but so powerful. We've got that part of our brain called the RAS. You guys have probably heard of it. The reticular activating system that just looks for whatever we pay our attention to. And, if you're going to get a red Mazda, all of a sudden you see red Mazdas everywhere. They were always there.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden you're tuned in. Well, it works like that with gratitude. When you're looking at and for and appreciating the good things, oh my gosh, you see more good things.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's incredible. Cool. So I've got a really cool practice that I came across from this woman called Pam Grout, who's got a great book called Thank and Grow Rich. Anyway, it's myself and 4 other people. We text 3 things we're grateful for to each other every day.
Oh, that's cool.
I know, right? It's been going 4 years, and it started off just a couple of us, and over a few months we grew it to 5. 5 is a good number because you've got to read everyone's texts. But honestly,
group messages, they
God,
get out of control, don't they?
Yeah. Well, this is cool. There's just 5, and you get a reminder when theirs come in, because I used to write in a gratitude diary, and I used to sometimes forget, go to bed and be kicking myself for forgetting. I get a reminder when theirs come in. But what I love about this practice was you actually get to experience their joy as well. So you're in touch with what's great in your own life, but you're actually witnessing and I guess vicariously experiencing other people's joy as well. And
sometimes when other people, when you can do that, when you can read what other people are grateful for, you can be like, oh, fuck, I'm actually grateful for that too, for that same thing in my own life. I don't even think of that.
For sure.
And can you, when you're practicing gratitude like that on a practical level, can you say the same thing? So
we have a rule that, or guide that you shouldn't say the same thing again, or at least not in that month.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Geez, you got to come up with a few things, don't you? What if you can't come up with 3 things?
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so funny. Because my little boy knows I do this, obviously. And it's funny one day because my partner and him and I'd have dinner, and I'd say we used to do this practice of what's something that you're grateful for today, and they'd like struggle, my partner would roll his eyes and I'd get really annoyed. And one day my son was like, he challenged me. He said he'd unpack the dishwasher if I could come up with 10. I was like, yeah, sure, 10's easy. I was able to come up, I negotiated from 30 down to 27. I came up with 27 things I was grateful for in one day. It's that whole you tune into. Yeah,
interesting. I suppose when you are actively looking for it, things will pop up.
Yeah, they pop up during the day. And the thing is, when you said, well, what if you haven't got anything? Well, there's so much we take for granted.
Oh, yeah.
It's the process of actually focusing in and act and making the decision
analysing,
to think.
Yeah.
And that's the point of gratitude is it's pausing to think, because people don't do that enough.
Brainer.
Totally.
Yeah, turn your bloody melon on.
The hot water or the cold water that comes out of the shower, the smile you exchange with somebody in the supermarket, the person who let you in the traffic.
The scent of the candle that we forgot to light.
No, I stuffed it up. I put the lighter into wax. I can't get it going.
I
made a mistake. Anyway,
that's cool. I like that. And you hear that a lot. People say practice gratitude, and people sing its praises.
It's been proven in research many times over now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's power, and it's simple. And there's lots of different ways.
Yeah.
Lots of different ways you can do it. So.
Sorry, and it was Pam Grout, Think and Grow Rich, right?
Thank and Grow Rich.
Thank and Grow Rich.
Yeah, not like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Step number 2, be still and breathe.
Yeah, so that's what you just said, isn't it, Dan? People don't stop.
So they kind of go together almost a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they can.
Or you can have a separate practice. I mean, the important thing is just spending some time being present. So, if like people get a bit freaked out by meditation, I do meditation, but, sometimes people go, oh, my mind's too crazy for that, whatever. But,
That's why you need to meditate.
Yeah, that's right. It's
That's
a practice.
literally- yeah,
It is a
why.
practice,
Yeah.
yes. But the other thing you can do is just start with being mindful, just having periods where you're awake. You just start with even when you clean your teeth. All right, for the 2 minutes I'm going to clean my teeth, I'm actually going to be here. I'm actually
Yeah.
going to connect in with myself.
I think the issue is that people think meditating is sitting in a certain position with your arms out, having a straight back, and all that sort of stuff.
No,
yeah.
I have the when they're like sitting there trying to meditate a few times
the Ace
at
Ventura.
home, and suddenly that magpie that's out the back that is just going
That's a crow, isn't it?
or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a strange looking sounding magpie.
And then I'm in the space of right. I'm meditating. I'm not thinking
I've
about
heard it.
anything
I've heard
else, but I can hear that, and here it is with me, and I'm meditating.
But you're present. You're present to it.
But
How
that's-
cool is that?
But that's the thinking. It's like you don't have to be blocking out all the stuff. It's just
You're
you
actually hearing the
there,
bird.
hearing the bird, and that's the
Yeah.
point,
But
right?
but
Absolutely.
But my thing's just laying down on a yoga mat. Like that's just my thing because it's just like so much
Nice.
easier. I can get comfortable,
Yeah.
and then close my eyes and listen to whatever. I normally just put the stuff that on YouTube. Normally go for like 35 minutes, 40 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, nice.
And they're great.
Yeah, cool. Apps, there's heaps of apps.
Yeah.
Heaps of apps. Buddhify, Simply Being, One Giant Mind, loads of apps that can help with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the apps aren't out there to just take your money,
No,
Get some
oh my
good, bloody helpful
gosh,
stuff.
Some of them are amazing.
Yeah.
And what's creating best year goals? What is
So just thinking about what would have happened if you just had your best year, projecting forward, right? Okay. We just meet up, best year ever. What happened? Who was there? What did you feel? What could you smell? What were you thinking? What can you hear? And yeah, just writing those things down, 5 or 6 cool things. And I've had so many, like on my career coaching clients, and I used to run a little workshop on this at the beginning of each year. People would contact me, oh my gosh, I've just come third in my ocean swim I put on the list, or booked the tickets to New York, or I've got that job as a greenkeeper at the school my kids go to.
So we're talking best year goal, but not like won the
Winning
lotto,
the lotto,
bought,
yeah, no.
bought a yacht and a Maserati. Like not like we're
Yeah.
talking like we're not saying like if you
What-
could wish anything or sort. It's like it's got to be within your means, kind of like.
Well, yes and no. I think it's good to go a little bit sort of, just out there as well. But, I don't get every single one of them every year. But I love that sort of idea that, shoot for the moon and you might land in the stars. I think that when we have a bit of clarity about what we'd like in our lives, the universe co-conspires to help us get it.
Absolutely.
So if you lie on the couch, you do nothing and you don't grow yourself in any way, I don't like your chances. But, get out there
you
and
get through a few Netflix series. That's about it.
It's give and take. You got to give a little to get a little, right?
yeah, I like
Um,
it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then
I love the next one.
do your thing.
Right.
I love that. That's my
Yeah.
favourite one.
Oh, is it?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't gotten through them all yet.
Yeah, well, I'm just letting people know that I'm at that.
I'm number 4.
I think doing your thing.
Yeah,
is
whatever your
like-
thing is.
And what's- and- yeah,
Because to
what's-
me that means don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. Just
Yeah.
do
Ah,
whatever the fuck
nice.
you want to do.
Yeah.
And
right.
what's your thing?
So for me, it's cycling.
Yeah.
That's my happy place. That's my thing,
That's
Cool. But it's whatever your thing is. And it's about finding it because sometimes people don't know, or even worse, they know and they just don't do it because they think they're too busy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Cop out.
Yeah, just make time for that because what happens, people get busy and then they drop it out of their life or their schedule, but that's when they need it the most because when you're busy, it actually helps you to have a clearer head, to be, in a better energy to get things done.
People don't think about this stuff in the right way, do they? Because the benefits of doing it, are there to counterbalance the stresses of the other things that you think are important.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's there as a safety measure, as a healthy coping mechanism for those times where you just need a little.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, That's do your
I
thing.
like that. I like do your thing.
Choose positive people. It's a good one.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of people are familiar with Jim Rowan's comment that we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most amount of time with. I just think we do need to think about our 5, think about, who we spend time with and what impact that has on our energy levels, because sometimes some people can be draining, and so if you need to spend time with those people, fine. Sometimes people have mental health issues that, can make life a bit harder. But you want to make sure that you actually spend time with some people who help to fill your cup, people who energize you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's very important. And then the last one.
My second favourite.
which is something that not enough people do.
Yeah.
Help one person every day.
Yeah. So the acronym for that is HOPE. And this is not my original work. I heard it on a podcast that I love, and I was just taken by it instantly. I was like, yep, HOPE, help one person every day. So there's a bunch of research around confirming the benefits from kindness, doing things for other people, and it releases happy chemicals in our brain, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and they actually counter the effects of cortisol, the stress hormone. So
there's very few people out there that volunteer to do things that say it was shit house.
Yeah.
One thing you don't hear often, volunteering to help people, you don't often hear that it was a bad experience.
Yeah, I come to trying to think. Sorry, I'm away from the mic.
Yeah.
Dan. It's almost like that. If you can't help yourself, help someone else.
Yeah, it's so true.
And that in doing so, you do help yourself.
You do. Yeah. It's like one of the best ways to get out of a funk. Best ways to get out of a funk.
I agree, but I also find sometimes when people are when these conversations come up and people are in a situation where they're emotionally struggling for whatever reason at all, and then someone's like, why don't you go volunteer somewhere? You know what I mean? I feel like it can be received the wrong way sometimes, but I completely vouch for that.
Yeah.
It just provides you with not only positive memories, but just a positive feeling,
Yeah, I just love that it's a win-win. You're helping someone else, but you're helping yourself as well.
So, how does it look if you've got a son who you're helping all the time? I would imagine that probably doesn't count, does it?
That's not always feeling rewarding. Sometimes you're not getting much back.
You little prick! I'm helping you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at the.
We've been going a while,
nearly an hour and 20.
Whoa.
So it's been a great podcast. It's been this has been a heavy podcast, and there's going to be a lot of people out there that have listened to this, and that if it's brought anything up, please reach out. Even the slightest thing.
Talk to someone.
Absolutely. And if it's an emergency, obviously call 000, but reach out to TX. We're here for you on 0488 469 888, or just reach out to us on socials as well, or in the Mutt Hut. But Donna, thanks so much for telling your story today. As we mentioned in the podcast, it seems like it's still very raw for you to be able to tell that story, and I don't think that's probably anything that will ever go away because of just how big it was, but how much you've taken away from that, and then invest in your life to change and help other people as well. Because it'd be just as an easier thing to hide away and pretend it never happened. Yeah. So for you to show the vulnerability and want to be able to go out there and tell people, that's a very powerful thing to do. So thank you.
For me to be completely transparent, the gravity of this conversation, the fact that we are actually sitting here and you're talking about this stuff, that hasn't, I don't think that's hit me really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's massive. It is huge. You just rarely hear the other side. And it's so important, it's so important because we can't pussyfoot around this subject.
I agree. We need to talk. That's what it's about. Dan and I had a little conversation out the front before I came in about, just when we talk, we help people know they're not the only one.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about suicide. We were talking about something sort of completely different. But that's why we need to have conversations. That's why we need to communicate.
Absolutely.
one of the major reasons that I share my story is because I want to give people hope.
Yep.
And it was honestly hope that changed my life when, that time when I sort of went, oh God, I don't want to live like this anymore. Like I saw a couple of presentations, a presentation and a conversation with a girlfriend where these women just said, I had all this stuff happening, and one day I just went, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I got off the couch, dusted myself off, and just refused to compare myself to anyone, and, just got on with living the life I want. And that just gave me so much hope that life could be different from how it was then. And so I want to give other people hope. I want people to know that it's possible to live an amazing life, even if you don't feel that way right now. And it's important to just never give up and keep going till you find what it is that you need to live that fulfilling life.
Absolutely. Thanks, Donna.
Talking of conversations, I just want to plug you. If anyone wants to find Donna Thistlethwaite.
You got it right.
You got it.
donnaspeaks.com.au.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Check it out. You go out to workplaces?
Yeah.
Awesome. It's amazing to have you here, Donna. Super blessed to have shared this conversation with you. Can't thank you enough for being so vulnerable. That is why we exist, to empower vulnerability amongst our community. So this is yet another example of someone, upstanding member of society, putting themselves out there and doing what we all need to do more of. So congratulations. Thank you so much. And I'm sure this won't be the last we hear of you.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Thanks, Donna.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
It's
Donna.
been fun.
Love your work.
Thank you.
Great.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you.
Ah, wow.
If I stop, I'll die.